Can you imagine life without a language? How it will be? Like, just think for a second. Like, you want to ask for something, you need to request something, you need to give some information or to persuade someone or to attract towards your idea. What will you require? The most important thing. Definitely, your answer will be language. Now the question arises, what kind of a language? What style of a language you should adopt? Welcome to the another lecture of communication skills to all the electrical engineering students. Okay, the most important thing I want you all to remember is about seven C's. That's a very brief formula of communication, especially the language in writing or in speaking as well. So I want you all to please recall what are seven C's. I will also attach seven C's previous lecture with this along with this lecture. The first and most important thing in your oral style or your language is that is important is an effective oral style tends towards short sentences and familiar language. Do not use very difficult terms and difficult vocabulary, but and use very short sentences. Don't be very much lengthy in making sentences with multiple sub sentences. Yeah, the more you short, the more it is easy to understand. And familiar language means easy words, which are we do not make your listener complicated in thinking about the meanings. Avoid the technical language. Another very effective tool for oral style and the language is that use plural personal pronouns. No, do not use singular personal pronouns like using of personal pronouns such as we, us, and our creates a sense of relationship with the audience. If you have focused on the comments that are posted on your Facebook page about your presentations, and I have rarely used I when commenting on your presentation. It is majorly we because it gives a sense of relationship that we all are working in a group and we all are concerned about each other. The third part is an effective oral style features descriptive words and phrases that appeal to the ear and in ways that sustain listener interest and promote retention. Sorry. Now it is a art. It is creativity that use such adjectives and adverbs that appeal the senses, that arouses the rhetorical figures. We'll talk in a couple of minutes in details about figurative language. That is an interesting part, and it is really a part of creativity. Another part is an effective oral style incorporates clear structure elements, like, for example, main point, preview section, transition, and signpost, as discussed in the previous chapters. Now, this means that you need to rehearse whatever is the point that in the oral style in for reviewing your language, find out how it is started, what are the middle points, and how it is going towards the next step and how you are ending it. It is the chronology of your language, of your speech, presentation, whatever it is. By speaking appropriately, we mean that using a language that adapts to the needs, interests, knowledge, and attitudes of the audience. You cannot ignore your audience. That is the audience for whom you are addressing a presentation or any public talk. Will they enjoy it? Will they feel it boring? Is there something of interest for them? Is it informative, persuasive for them? This is something a presenter should keep in mind while from the first point when you are preparing your presentation or rehearsing it. You may have faced situations like you wanted to say something and your intentions were something else, but your friend or the audience you were talking to, they get it with some other meaning, and that really had made you upset. So have you thought about it, why this happened to you? What is the reason behind it? Is it the delivery, or is it the language or the words that you have selected? So, this chapter will help you in understanding this point. For this purpose, it is very important to have a verbal immediacy. It is a language used to reduce the psychological distance between you and your audience. You should not be felt like some tycoon or something super duper hero, or some figure is standing and having a big distance from the audience. But you should have, there should be least psychological distance. The audience should feel like you are one of them. Obviously, without relevance, it is not possible to move on. The audience should feel that the topic is related to them. They are interested in listening to it. It is of some benefit for them. For example, if you, in the current situation, you will talk about how to make yourself healthy, stay healthy in this COVID 19. So everybody will give you attention because it is relevant to the audience to understand it for the purpose of their own well being. Same is with any other topic that you want to talk to your audience about. So make it relevant to them, how it is connected to them in the beginning. This will make your topic more interesting if you share your personal experiences related to the topic. It will bring life into it, and your audience will take more interest. You can also engage your audience by asking their experiences. So your presentation or the public speaking, the public interaction become more lively, more lifelike. It should not be boring and monotonous. Like you can imagine how is the one-way lecture in the classroom if the teacher is only giving lecture and you people are just listening to it. You cannot sit or concentrate more than 5 minutes. You will certainly start feeling it boring, and a very worthy lecture can be spoiled by it. So bring all those flavors into your public speaking that arise your audience attention towards you with interest. Another part is speaker credibility. Now, who is the speaker? Who is speaking it? I want to quote over here a very interesting story or example from the life of our holy prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It was the time when Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was revealed with first wahi, and he asked all the people of Quraysh that what if I ask you that there is an enemy behind the mountains of this area. People said, yes, definitely, we will believe you. Because Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was famous with the name of Sadiq in Amin. Now, he was a credible speaker, he was a credible person in his locality in Makkah at that time. There's another very famous saying in Urdu जिसमें कहा जाता है कि ये ना देखो क्या कह रहा है, ये देखो कि कौन कह रहा है. This matters a lot. It is like the confidence of the audience places in the truthfulness of what a speaker says. If you have a positive credibility, definitely people will follow you and they will listen to you. But if you have lost your credibility, then definitely your audience will be not in a mood to trust you. So trust is very important, and that is because of credibility. Imagine if I tell you, like, for example, that Charlie Chaplin or the famous comic character Mr. Bean are going to have some very serious talk about the current situation of different countries' economy, what will be your response? Definitely, you will think I'm just joking with you because the credibility of the speakers are not relevant to the topic, which is a very serious one. And you all will start laughing when you even hear their names. And you have experienced this thing with your friends even, like to whom who how many of them you consider to be credible, and some of them are not credible. That is because of the interpersonal relationships. Another very important domain of linguistic sensitivity is involved in your language. There will be certain words and statements that will be respectable for one gender or culture but not for another gender or culture. This is all linguistic sensitivity we talked about in very detail in chapter number 4 in the initial classes. The first term is generic language. Generic language is the usage of words that apply to one co-culture group as though they represent everyone. Like generic language is he, or if you use she, that is like you are addressing only 50% of audience and you are not representing the other 50%. So better is to use the pronouns like we, they. So this will avoid to get you into such situation. Another is the non-parallel language. These are the words that are changed because of the sex, race, or other group characteristic of the individual. This kind of usage will bring irrelevant and non-parallel association, which can be offensive. One of it is marking, like if you say John is a good doctor, but marking is like you say John's is a good black doctor. Now, what does black to do with the doctor? Nothing. Doctor is another, it's a job, it's an ability, it has nothing to do with a black or white. Well, another interesting marking is I have observed in the invitation cards, wedding cards जो आती हैं हमारे घरों में, एक बड़ी interesting line उसमें लिखी होती है that Mr. XYZ, a former businessman or brigadier, invites you to the wedding ceremony of his doctor, engineer, and so to the wedding of, uh, and that's the story like this. So, is it important for a wedding to be a doctor or to be a engineer or a brigadier or any XYZ? Like, it has nothing to do, but it is a marker that is used in our society, which is very much irrelevant. And this kind of marking is called irrelevant associations. This has nothing to do with it. This is another interesting example. Like for example, some people consider it excessive to use generic language because everyone knows, for instance, that a policeman or a fireman or a mailman could be a man or a woman. How do you feel and why? Like there can be a police person with a female gender. There can be is a possibility. There's also possibility for a fireman and a mailman to be a woman. But why? This is another very strong example of generic terms used in our language. Offensive humor means dirty jokes, racist, sexist, or other kind of jokes that make offensive a certain group of people. Like there are many examples of humor related to, we talked in previous lectures as well about ethnicity. जैसे पठान के जोक बनते हैं, सिखों पे जोक्स बहुत बनते हैं. अच्छा, मेल और फीमेल जेंडर पे बहुत बनते हैं related to their gender. So we need to avoid that. These are all things in our language. Okay, profanity and vulgarity. It is appropriate language avoid profanity and vulgar expressions. Well, 50 years ago, a child was punished for saying hell or damn, and adults used profanity and vulgarity only in rare situations to express strong emotions. Today world, casual swearing, ये जो हम करते हैं ना डेली रूटीन में, कसमें खाना एंड slang words use करते हैं, inject it into our regular conversation, and it is becoming very integral part of today's society, especially in college campuses we see this. So avoid it. If you get into such habit, ये आप बिला ज़रूरत use करेंगे, and definitely it will make your speech, your language not um, easy to people will have a kind of grudge with you if you use such kind of language. And when you use such vulgar language, definitely your character become is often you are perceived as abrasive and lacking in character, maturity, intelligence, manners, and emotional control. You'll be tend to be an immature person. So definitely it is getting harm for the speaker credibility. Well, you all know what this cultural diversity means. We have recently finished the chapter related to intercultural communication. You can see here the picture. After 70 years, a black man become president of United States, is the representative of cultural diversity. And this, when you keep in mind the language sensitivities in respect of cultural diversity, you become more friendly to the audience. In language, clarity is very much important. You can see here is a pyramid of thought of relevant, referent, and symbol. Symbol is what you are talking about, your thought in your brain that you make to deliver to the audience. If they are making reference of all these three, it means you are speaking clearly, using words that convey your meaning precisely. So it's a triangle that your audience is going through, and your own brain when you are making your topic explanation to the audience. For example, when you hear the word dog, what image forms in your mind? Do you visualize a poodle, a sheepdog, a mutt? There is so much variation in the word dog conjures in our minds because the word dog is not the actual animal. The word is a symbol you use to represent the animal. So if you use the word dog in a speech, each member of your audience may picture something different, a different species of dog. So, what do you actually mean by that? It is your reference of that symbol. So, you all are suggested that you should use words that most closely match the thing or idea you want your audience to see or understanding. And for this purpose, you have to follow some strategies. You have to use familiar terms, specific language, provide details and example, and limit vocalized pauses. So we'll explain it now. And the specific language is words that narrow what is understood from a general category to a particular item or group within it. For this purpose, you need to improve your vocabulary. If you are good enough in vocabulary, you can describe things in a specific language. Like, you definitely need to speak precisely, but precisely does not mean that you talk in a language that make things obscure and not clear. Here's the very detailed example. You all need to read this. This will make easy for you to understand how to use a specific language. You are supposed to use the difficult terms only when you have no other choice, but still you have to define it when you are speaking to when you are delivering your idea. Again, I'm referring to familiar terms, which means, again, the seven C's, a clear language where you avoid jargon, slang, abbreviations, and acronyms. You define them clearly the first time they are used, and using them in central to your speech goal if it is important to use, but you have to define them. The terms related to engineering, the terms related to medical field, to the communication, to the different groups, they are jargon. They are familiar only to the people of that language, and it is also called high-tech language. So you have to avoid them to use. And if still you are using it, you have to explain it as well. Another type is slang, informal, non standard vocabulary and definitions assigned to word by social group or subculture. You should remember that slang would be only for a specific group. It will be not generalized one. It will be not the dictionary meaning. For example, if I give example of the word cool, what does the cool word mean actually denotatively? In dictionary, it will be something with the temperature of Fahrenheit, which is cold. But connotatively, what does the slang refer to the word cool? It is someone who is attractive, someone who is very much um, appealing. So we also use for that. Well, this is one kind of slang, and there are so many others that we use every day. So be careful about them. As cool is a temperature and not a style, actually. Okay, detail an example means like you provide concrete information. He lives in a really big house. Is Can be more clarified by if you say he lives in a 14-room Tudor mansion on a 6-acre estate. Well, look, vocalized pauses are something we all use, and that is unintentionally most of the time. It is the unnecessary words interjected to fill a moment of silence. For example, really? Don't tell me. Basically, as you know, all these words are used for vocalized pauses.